What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video I'll be featuring a 9-1 run with a strong team in the GreatLeague remix. GREEDENT Lead, Shadow Gligar Safe Swap, and Jellicent in the back. GREEDENT is such an amazing Pokemon in this format, where it can even hold its own in negative matchups and is just an all-around beast. I'm running Crunch on it for more ghost coverage, but you can run Trailblaze as well if that's what you prefer. Then Shadow Gligar and Jellicent help to round out this team as an ABB style to a Poliwrath lead, where they also serve as great coverage to a lot of the remix meta. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead GREEDENT into Magnezone. Fantastic lead for us as we are dealing double super effective damage with those mud shots, and since we are on Crunch, we can hit it for neutral damage as well as outpace, so they do swap into a Shadow Golbat. We chip it with a Body Slam, and then we swap into our Shadow Gligar. They're most likely going to full send the Shadow Ball here, but I do let it go just in case they do Poison Fang bait me. As well as if they land that Shadow Ball, I will be able to get to 2 Aerial Aces here before they are able to farm me down. So I'll be able to maintain Switch or get both of their shields, and with both of their shields down, which it looks like my opponent does do because they want Switch advantage, Jellicent doesn't have to worry because it can get to that Shadow Ball and basically delete that Magnezone regardless. So at this point, that Magnezone is basically useless on my opponent's team, and it all is going to come down to what they have in the back, and they have a Superior. So I swap out of my GREEDENT there because I was debuffed and I didn't want to stay in with my defense being dropped like that. They have a Superior in the back, and now this Superior is going to put in a ton of work. It gets my first shield with the Frenzy Plant. I am thankfully able to land a Shadow Ball, but then they end up swapping out, and now this makes what would have been a very tricky situation kind of a little bit more doable for me, because I can land that Shadow Ball onto the Magnezone, get to a Surf to take it out, and now this Superior is going to have to land an Aerial Ace to take out my Jellicent, and then a Frenzy Plant on my GREEDENT, but I'm able to combo play with the Body Slam. Body Slam's just not enough to take it out, and I'm going to be able to Mud Shot down and take this game, as we do, but I still have the Jellicent alive. If my opponent stayed in there and landed the Frenzy Plant before I got to the next Shadow Ball, it would have been a much trickier end game, because they would have been able to land another Frenzy Plant on my GREEDENT and have shipped it down quite low to then where the Magnezone probably would have been able to deal with it, but fortunately we were able to take that one. GG's, we let GREEDENT into Quagsire, and they save swap into a Shadow Alolan Ninetales. Here, with a Mud Shot head start, I stay in with my GREEDENT thinking that, hey, this Powder Snow Shadow Alolan Ninetales is most definitely a bait out of a Jellicent, so their back Pokemon doesn't have to see it. So I'm staying in here thinking, you know, I can maintain Switch advantage, and then my own Jellicent can go off after this, right? But that ends up being a big misplay. I should have just come in with my Jellicent right away, because as you'll see here, they do end up double baiting my GREEDENT with Weather Balls. That allows them to survive on 1 HP to make it to a Dazzling Gleam. So because of that survive, if they went down, then this play would have been perfectly fine that I did. But because of that survive, I am now in a very bad position. I should have just come into my Jellicent right away, because say they have a Poliwrath in the back that they're trying to bait out with that Powder Snow Alolan Ninetales safe swap, I still have my Shadow Gligar for that. So there's really no need to have stayed in with my GREEDENT there. In addition, they ended up swapping out of the GREEDENT lead in this matchup, but if they do have a Quagsire lead and they stay in, build up to the Trailblaze before throwing the Body Slam. I don't think I've had a Quagsire lead no shield my move when I build up to the Trailblaze. No shield the first move, I should say, when I build up to a Trailblaze. So it's a good way to get an early shield from your opponent. That is if you're running Crunch like I am. If you are running Trailblaze, then it's up to you. You could bait the Body Slam, you could just go straight for the Trailblaze. All I'm saying is that I haven't had them no shield the first move yet. And as you see in this matchup, it is the Poliwrath in the back. And because I have no shields at this point, this Poliwrath does get to land that Icy Wind and take me out. So like I said, if I just came in the Jellicent there, I feel like this match probably would have been drastically different. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead GREEDENT into Mantine. And you know, you may think that this is a very bad lead for us and quite the big core breaker, because I have the Shadow Gligar behind it and GREEDENT here. These mud shots are double resisted, and I'm forced to just spam off these body slams. Well, that spammy nature of the body slam is actually perfect for this matchup, because your opponent's not going to want to swap out of this matchup because it sees that as a positive matchup here. But GREEDENT is able to get to 3 body slams before they're able to take you out, and they have to throw almost immediately, otherwise you will reach 4 body slams and take them out. As you'll see here, I'm 1 mud shot off of another body slam, but this is CMP tie, so they take me out, and this is perfect because now their Mantine is in perfect farm down range for the Shadow Gligar. They will never be able to reach an Ice Beam here, or a Water Pulse. As you see, they got taken down on the 7th wing attack. They'll never be able to reach an Ice Beam or a Water Pulse there. They'll only be able to reach a Aerial Ace, and that's perfectly fine because not only is their Mantine gone now, and Shadow Gligar normally destroys the backline of Mantine Lead teams, so the hardest counter to it's out of the way, but you have a very big energy head start just in case Gligar doesn't have the best matchup against your backline. But with an energy lead, Shadow Gligar is just an absolute beast in those kinds of situations. And in this specific match, my opponent actually had a bulk point Mantine, so my wing attacks against it were doing less damage. That's why it took 7 wing attacks to take them down. If they don't have that bulk point Mantine, which, as I've mentioned in a previous video, most do not, you will actually be able to wing attack them down in 5 wing attacks, so you won't even have to tank an Aerial Ace. So that's why, like, even in those slightly negative matchups of a GREEDENT lead, it puts in so much work to pave the way for your back line to be able to take the game for you. Here, I still have a Surf banked on my Jellicent, so I could have just gone for another Aerial Ace here and then combo played, or when my Gligar went down, went for another Surf with my Jellicent, but I am able to make the dig and take them out. GG's. Next battle, Sableye Lead. Fantastic lead for the GREEDENT, as again, we do have the Crunch with the faster pacing. So we are going to load up, fire off this Crunch right before they reach a potential return. And most of the times, Sableye against bulky Pokemon like GREEDENT, they tend to go for the return. So they go, oh, it's a bulky Pokemon. They use it to absorb energy, so they don't like to use their shields here. But honestly, in this format, GREEDENT is just so good that if you are fairly confident your opponent's going to go for the harder hitting move like the Sableye did here, I would say it's worth investing in the shield a lot of the times. So we do get the shield call right. They swap into a Gligar, and I make a little bit of a misplay here. You should, if your opponent safe swaps Shadow Gligar, you should always body slam it right away with your GREEDENT and then bring in your Jellicent, because after that body slam's worth a chip, it puts the Shadow Gligar in 1 single Surf range from your Jellicent. So that's just something to keep in mind in that situation. But here, I'm going to come into my GREEDENT right away, throw my Body Slam right away that I do have stored to keep them from getting to a move. They have Carbink in the back, and now here, they bring in their Gligar, and up this energy, this game is just won. Because my opponent's only hope there was to survive that Aerial Ace, so they can get off a move and then try and have their Carbink clean up. But so they made the right call there, not shielding their Sableye, because if they did shield their Sableye, I would have outpaced to my second Aerial Ace before they reached their second foul play. So they did play to their win condition, but unfortunately, the Shadow Gligar here is just going to put in too much work on the Carbink. We do land that first dig, so we are in a situation to just go for that Aerial Ace to get that shield for my opponent, as even if they called that Aerial Ace, GREEDENT would be more than capable of closing out this matchup. As we get to 1 Body Slam, throw a couple more Mud Shots to get it in Body Slam range for the second Body Slam we're at, and this will be enough to take down the Carbink. GG's. And that's one downside of having Crunch on GREEDENT instead of Trailblaze, is that you can only hit Carbink for resisted damage. but generally, I like the coverage that Crunch provides better. Next battle, GREEDENT into Charm, Shadow, Alolan, Ninetales. 7 mud shots, and then the body slam for good timing. We want to get this move off before both of our moves off, I should say, before they have a chance to fire off their weather ball. So we land both body slams. I throw 1 mud shot and then swap into my Jellicent, expecting them to throw their weather ball right there, but they did a very nice job being patient, and they're then able to land their side shock on my Jellicent, but that's okay. Jellicent's extremely bulky. It's able to take that energy, and then they bring in a Shadow Dragonite. We get the bait call correct with our Jellicent, so we end up getting a shield from them. And I was debating shielding that to then land the Shadow Ball to get their final shield back or take out the Dragonite, but I decided to go for energy on my Pokemon instead, specifically GREEDENT, because its pacing to body slam is just incredibly quick. So we land this body slam, and that's perfect because now I can swap into my Shadow Gligar and get a wing attack down before they reach another move, and they counter swap with an Empoleon of their own. And again, with this head start, this is a terrible matchup for Shadow Gligar, but with this energy head start, we're able to outpace to 2 digs before they reach 2 Hydro Cannons. So this is CMP tie. They're at the back-to-back Hydros right here, but because this is the CMP tie, they're not going to be able to get their second Hydro off. This dig will take out that Empoleon, and then I'll be able to wing attack down the rest of their team from here. So in that situation, my only lose condition was Aerial Ace baiting the Empoleon and them calling the Aerial Ace bait. So that's why we full send double dig there. GG's. Next battle, Shadow Magnezone Lead. Again, a good lead for us. We're going to fire off this Crunch right away because we do outpace. And this almost always gets a shield from the Shadow Magnezone as they respect the Crunch. But this opponent lets it go, perhaps calling the bluff that I'm on Body Slam and Trailblaze and that I just went for the Body Slam there. But the Crunch does land and does massive damage. And again, Sableye Lead, Shadow Magnezone Lead. I like to shield the move because GREEDENT is bulky. They full send the nuke move most of the time, and it ends up being a very valuable shield in this matchup very often. So we do land that body slam against the Shadow Gligar that came in, putting it into Surf range for us. First Surf does get shielded, and now they're going to be able to land a dig here, which they do. Load up on a little bit more energy and go for the next Surf. This is on bad timing, but the Surf will KO, and I wanted to maximize as much energy as possible. But then they end up giving up their last shield, and they overfarm too much, letting us get to another Surf of our own. And now we are heavily in the driver's seat of this match. We can swap into our Shadow Gligar here. It will be able to land a Surf, but as we know, it does not one-shot. So if they stay in, I'll throw 1 wing attack and then the dig, but they swap into a Shadow Magnezone, and I get greedy. I'm thinking Wild Charge, they're 3 off it, but if they throw a Wild Charge first, they're then only 2 Volt Switches off of a Mirror Shot. So I go down with all of that energy, and now this end game is going to be very, very close. Fortunately, the opposing Jellicent is on Hex, so 2 Surfs won't be able to quite take us out, and we will be able to reach that crunch in time. But my miscounting of the Magnezone there definitely made this matchup a lot closer than it should have been. As you'll see, that second Surf does land, brings us deep into the red, but we are able to hang on, make that crunch, and down goes the Jellicent. GG's. Next battle, we lead GREEDENT into Goodra. Pretty neutral lead, since most Goodra are running the moveset of Aqua Tail and Thunder Punch. We load up to back-to-back Body Slams, firing off Body Slam number 1. Does land on the Goodra, and we're going to fire off Body Slam number 2 right away. We want to put some pressure on that HP or shields of my opponent, and we end up getting a shield from them. So that ends up working well for us. And here, I just get a little too greedy. I see they haven't thrown their move yet. I want to get to the next Body Slam, you know, force another shield potentially. But they take advantage of that and they catch onto their own Jellicent. So that's a very nice play by them. And here I do give up a shield, even though it is most likely a Surf bait, which it is. So then I can load up 2 more hexes and then fire off a Shadow Ball of my own before they reach their own Shadow Ball. Does end up getting their final shield, which was a little surprising to me. Perhaps they want to bring it down to a 0 shield scenario, which I'm perfectly fine with, because I know that in that instance, I will be able to overfarm and leave with quite a healthy Jellicent and a bit of energy stored as well, as I will fire off the Shadow Ball before their next Shadow Ball. See what they want to come in with. They come in with Registeel, and I pivot GREEDENT here. This is a little bit of a questionable pivot, just because they have that Goodra behind it. But I wanted to save I wanted to use this GREEDENT as a meat shield and save my Jellicent for that Goodra. So they would have to go for the more expensive Thunder Punches against it instead of the lesser expensive Aqua Tails, because the Aqua Tails, as we know, are resisted against Jellicent. So here I did get the Crunch debuff with my GREEDENT, so I go for the Surf here, trying to potentially think it's enough. Of course it's not enough, it's a Registeel. So I swap into my Gligar to catch their move. Very nice hold by them, and then they Draco Meteor my Gligar, and it's just gone just like that. But the good news about Draco Meteor is it lowers your attack. So even with that super effective Thunder Punch landing and the Dragon Breaths, we are able to hold on, get to the back-to-back surfs. First surf to take out the Goodra, and second surf to win the CMP tie against the opposing Registeel and take it out. GG's, very close one right there. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead GREEDENT into Carbink. We're not running Trailblaze, so this is a terrible lead for us. We load up to the Crunch and then swap it to my Gligar. You can do that. You can pivot your Gligar right away. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. I stored up energy onto my GREEDENT just, to potentially have the option to snipe something later. But they end up counter swapping into their own Giratina Origin here. And we land that dig, and because we land that dig, we can flip switch. And flipping switch to put our Jellicent on the Carbink is absolutely pivotal in this matchup. So we do correctly shield the Shadow Ball. They let it go. They still have 2 shields for their Carbink, but I have a Gligar with a lot of energy, so we're able to get that shield back. And I will reach yet another dig here if they don't throw. So they do throw a Rock Slide to take out my Gligar. And now I can bring my Jellicent onto the Carbink, and they have Shadow Sableye and back. So taking switch in this matchup was absolutely massive for us. As the first Crunch will land, gets the defense drop. Honestly, that defense drop didn't matter, because the second Crunch, even though it might have just barely not KO'd, the Shadow Sableye wouldn't have been healthy enough to make a big enough impact on this matchup regardless. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, GREEDENT against Empoleon. This is a fairly neutral matchup for us, which is helped out by the fact that we have Crunch for the faster pacing. So they will land Hydro Cannon. I boat up to the Trailblaze to potentially bluff it, but it doesn't matter to bluff it or not, as we do land the Crunch, and then they come in with a regular Dragonair here on the safe swap. So I land a Body Slam, then bring in my own Jellicent, where I will then be able to land the Shadow Ball. They go for the CMP tie. I'm expecting them to go for the CMP tie, so I overfarm there. So I get an extra Hex. And that Aqua Tail does pitiful damage, but I don't want any more Dragon Breath damage onto my Jellicent than need be. So I do go for that Shadow Ball right away, and they have their own Dragonite in the back. A little bit unfortunate that they did outpace my Jellicent in this matchup here to what would be the Shadow Ball, but I'm more than happy to give up a shield there, because they're gonna shield that. They have 2 shields for the Shadow Dragonite, and I fall just short of the next surf, and that's pivotal in this matchup, because getting at least a surf's worth of chip or their second shield would drastically change the scope of this game. So we are forced to come in with our Gligar here. I'm going to go for the Aerial Ace bait. A little risky to do when they have a Shadow Dragonite, because people love to save their shields for the Shadow Dragonite, but we do get the bait call correctly. So we're then able to swap into our Greedent, force energy from them. And now I can overfarm just enough right before they reach their next Hydro Cannon. I have to hope this Aerial Ace is enough to have a chance. It is enough. And now can we hang on to make the next Aerial Ace? We can. Shadow Gligar hangs on with 1 HP to take out the Shadow Dragonite. So that was a match of 1 HP survives and KOs there. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, Greedent into Shadow Alolan Ninetales. This one is on Powder Snow instead of Charm. And based off of the Shadow Alolan Ninetales safe swap we saw last match, we know how this match ends up if they double bait us. So they build up to the Dazzling Gleam. I'm going to call it this time. I'm feeling bold and risky. And we do get the Weather Ball call correct. So this instantly changes the path of the match as opposed to last time. We do land our second Body Slam. That's not quite enough to take out the Shadow Alolan Ninetales. So we are going to overfarm here. Fire off the Body Slam right before their next Weather Ball. The straight 4 pacing of Body Slams is incredibly good here. And I was thinking about catching this next Weather Ball, but I was going to throw one more Mud Shot and then catch because I was expecting them to throw one more Powder Snow, but they throw it right away. And that's all right though, because even though I don't get switch advantage, I will be able to get an energy advantage on my Jellicent. And they bring in a Shadow Swampert. And if they're bringing in a Shadow Swampert against a Jellicent, they have to be extremely weak to this thing. And that's also fantastic because I have a Shadow Gligar behind this. And the Shadow Gligar is just going to get one shot by Hydro Cannon. So this match ends up going well so far. Unfortunately, what's not going well is they do successfully bait me with a Hydro Cannon, meaning they would reach an Earthquake on the CMP tie to my Shadow Ball. So I go for the extra. We end up sneaking, getting more energy, and hopefully this allows me to reach a move against something they have in the back, which is a Poliwrath. And we should have this game won, but it is going to be an extremely close one, as we do outpace to that Aerial Ace there, get to land the Aerial Ace before they land their Icy Wind. Icy Wind does a ton of damage to the Shadow Gligar. They will just be able to counter down on 1 HP, but we are not in 1 counter range as we do hex them down. GG's. I will say this is a pretty strong team in this iteration of the Remix Cup, where the MVP of the team definitely goes to GREEDENT. Its ability to spam off moves and set the tempo of the game, even in negative matchups, was nothing short of crucial. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate ya. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.